Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be painting some bright loose florals and I'm going to break it down for you step by step. So let's do it. Okay, so today we are going to be doing a loose floral piece, but before we start, I'm going to break down some shapes for you to help you and give you tips on how to do a really nice loose floral piece without actually creating real flowers. The great thing about loose florals is that it doesn't have to look like a flower. You just kind of have to do some curvy shapes and have it flow nicely and it will look like a beautiful loose floral piece. So we are going to get into breaking those shapes down and then we will paint the finished piece. So right now, just for practice, I'm using my Princeton watercolor pad. This is not the greatest paper, but it will do for practice and I use it for practice. I have my Winsor Professional watercolors on my palette here, my Princeton snap brush in a size 12, and water and paper towel, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I'm actually gonna turn this around because I'm gonna use these colors mostly. And the first shape that we are going to do, I'm just gonna show you how to do some really easy floral shapes, is just this C curve shape. Okay, so you're doing a C curve this way and then a C curve that way, and you have this petal. Okay, and then the next shape you're going to do is another C curve around it, like that. And then you're just going to continue to do these like little curves kind of around this initial petal. And it's going to give you the illusion that it's a kind of like a peony bud blooming. Now, the trick is to leave a little bit of white space so it's not just a blob of curves. You have a little bit of space to kind of give the illusion that they're separate petals. And then you can just do some like curves on the top very, very loosely. And this is just going to look like a peony flower. Okay, to take this up another step from looking like more of the bulb or the bud, that's the word I was looking for, you can open up the flower by doing more C curves kind of falling down or more petal shapes like that. And it looks like it's kind of starting to open a bit more, but really I'm just doing loose curve shapes. And that kind of looks more like a peony. Now for a rose we've done before, this you're doing C curves around kind of in a circle. So I always start with really light pressure with the tip of my brush, even though I'm using a big brush, light pressure, just using the tip to get these really nice fine lines and just doing kind of like squigglies in the center. And then you're going to take that same C curve stroke and you're just going to go around the squiggles like that, leaving some white space. You don't want a high arch like that, leaving a lot of white space. You want it to be kind of close, just leaving the tiniest bit of white space. And I usually work in threes for the initial curves around the squigglies. These are my official terms, squigglies. And then I start doing some more around. Okay, I like when they touch each other. And you're just making it a little bit lighter as it goes out too. And you can always go back in and drop more color towards the center to make that center darker. Easy peasy. Now, while I'm saying it's easy, if you haven't done this before, it may not look like this, so don't get on yourself. You just have to keep practicing, okay? But these are just kind of the initial shapes that you can be using. Okay, so for a bud that may just start to be blooming, I'm gonna grab a bit more yellow. All you're gonna do, C curve the other way. Super easy. C curve. All right? If you want the bud to start opening a little, you can add another little curve around it, like that. And then what I like to do with these ones, I'm just gonna use, actually no, I won't use a smaller brush. I'm gonna grab a bit of green. You might wanna use a smaller brush if you're new to this. You're going to touch a little bit of the bottom of the bud. So there's a bit of a green blend or a color bleed in there. Then drag a little stem down. Same with this one. It just looks like that little piece that kind of encases the bud. I don't remember what it's called, but it kind of adds a little something to it, okay? And there you go. Simple bud. Okay, let's do a flower that's kind of more open and face up. And we're gonna make this super simple and loose. Do one kind of funny looking petal that way, one that way, one that way, one that way, one that way. Looks very kind of messy, but it still kind of looks like a flower, right? And literally just kind of scribbling. Okay, I'm gonna grab a bit more color and I'm gonna tap the center. There you go. And then once that's dry, I might add a little bit of yellow to the center. Okay, what if we're doing kind of the side view of that one? We're gonna do the kind of squiggly that way, squiggly that way, squiggly that way. And then I would grab some green and maybe touch the bottom and have a stem, maybe a leaf. And I like when it bleeds into the petal, okay? So using these 4 different shapes, all consisting of just curved lines, you're gonna create a very loose composition. Okay, so the next part of this is adding the greenery. So for something like this, because what we don't want just clusters of flowers and then greenery around. We kind of want the greenery to be intertwined a little bit between the flowers. So let me do this kind of peony again. Okay, do our kind of petal shape, a curve, very messy, loose, and curves on top. Now it's hard to do it with this paper because it dries fast, so just if it doesn't work as well, just bear with me. We'll have some petals coming down. And I'm really using the belly of this big brush to get those bigger strokes, okay? Don't be afraid to use pressure like that. Then I'm gonna go back in with my green before it dries. And I'm just gonna tap some parts of it. I'm gonna do a little curve and just do a little bit of leaves. Maybe I'll have some coming up this way too, like that. Okay, so I'll add that greenery in, and while it's still wet, then I will add my rose right next to this petal, so I can get a little bit of a color bleed from the peony to the rose. Like that. Okay, but there's a little bit of greenery in between them, so it's not just 2 blobs of flowers next to each other. Then I'm going to add some greenery around this one. I'm gonna leave some space maybe for another flower, maybe greenery over here. Like that. And then let's add some of those buds. I want it to blend or bleed into this little space right here. Like that. Like that. Grab your green, maybe tap a little bit in there, have it coming up this way, like that. So it's not just blobs of flowers and then greenery around. It's kind of all intertwined into each other, okay? This does take practice. If you don't get it on the first try or the second try or the third try, don't worry, just keep going. Just try and be loose with it, turn on some nice music and just paint. Lay down those shapes. Now, if I wasn't clear before with the leaf shapes, again, it's the same kind of C curve. Okay, oopsie. There we go, I'm gonna grab some green. And all you're doing is you're doing light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and you can kind of curve it. And then same thing, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, curve the other way. And there's a leaf shape. But even with this, with loose florals, don't do a perfect leaf. Just lay your brush down, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, just kind of flick it. See where it goes. Okay, you can turn it different ways. Those are still kind of perfect looking leaves. But like this one isn't, right? I'm just kind of dabbing my brush down and just seeing what kind of shape it makes. Because a leaf, not all leaves are perfect, right? You kind of want that imperfectness in your loose floral, if that makes sense. Okay, so now that we have the basics of the shapes, we are going to paint on Arch's watercolor paper, which I like better for this. It takes the color a lot better, makes it a bit more vibrant. And we're going to apply all those shapes that we did to a floral piece. So I think I'm going to use similar colors because I just really like those pinks and the yellows. So I have some permanent rose here, which is a nice bright pink, cadmium yellow. I might mix some of those to make a peach, sap green, and then I might use this perline green too to make little darker bits. Now, when I do a floral composition, I will not start right in the center. You want it slightly off. I find it looks a little weird when it's symmetrical and you have this one centerpiece. You kind of want to bring your eye focus to a zigzag. So not like a, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. So we're just going to go off center. Let's just start. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a light wash, and that's just adding more water to my color. And something that I may do, instead of adding a lot of water to this and making the whole thing light, I'll take color up and then I'll put it in my water and I'll run it against the side, and that's gonna create a light wash to start. Okay, so let's do our peony shape. Okay, here's our petal. So one curve that way, one curve that way. It's kind of rounded. Okay, and then I'm gonna curve around it, curve around this side, maybe a smaller one. And then I'm gonna do some just curvy shapes around the top. I'm gonna grab a bit more color. Just doing C curves around this kind of petal. Okay, and if we want it to be kind of falling down, like that. And then what I like to do is I like to go back in, grab more color, and just add it to the base or a petal just to get some really nice color bleeds. You can even add a little bit of yellow, throw it up there like that. And you get this really nice dark to light kind of gradient, and it just kind of adds a little bit of something extra to look at with the flower instead of it just being a flat color. Okay, let's get our green, wash off your brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of green down here and a leaf. Maybe one up here, like that. Okay, I'm gonna grab a bit of pink here, a bit of yellow, a bit more of a corally color. I'm gonna start my rose over here. Okay, do our little squiggles around. I'm gonna add a bit more water to my brush so I make a lighter wash, and I'm just gonna do those C curves around. Adding more water to make it lighter as we get closer to the outside. Also, it just helps drag the paint out a bit more. Like that. Like that. And then you can go back in, grab more color and tap it towards the center if you like. Like that. Let's add a bit of greenery there too. Like so. Maybe a bit over here. And you can also change up your greenery too. One thing I like to do is I like to add like burnt umber to my green to get more of an earthy tone. So let's change that up. Kind of gives it a bit of an olivey green. Let's do a nice long leaf over here, like that. Now let's do some of those smaller buds. So I'm gonna grab this yellow, and I want it to bleed into this rose a bit. And we're just doing that bud, remember? One C curve, another C curve. Then you can do an even smaller one over here. Wipe it off, grab a bit of your green, tap the bottom of those buds, and then you can connect them together if you want. You can do some leaves coming off of it. Like that, you got some buds. Let's grab some pink and we'll do that kind of open face flower. So we're just gonna do that squiggly petal, squiggly petal, squiggly petal, squiggly petal, squiggly petal. Looks a little ratchet, but it's all good. Okay, we'll do maybe another side view of one. So just kind of weird petal shape. That's actually a bit darker than I wanted, but that's okay. I'm gonna go even darker in the center. I wanna make it nice and vibrant, this one. Gonna grab a bit of green, tap the bottom of this one, have some leaves coming out of this one, like that, maybe on this side too. Like that. And sometimes what I also like to do is take a darker green, tap the bottom of some of those stems of the leaves, and it just adds a bit of darkness, and I really like that. Okay, now let's go up here, I think. So let's create another one of these. Let's make it a bit lighter though. Okay, we're gonna do funny looking petal, funny looking petal. Literally scribbles in kind of like a star formation. Let's do another bud kind of shape over here. Can even do kind of like this peony shape, but just like more of a bud so it hasn't bloomed. grab some pink, tap it in the center, maybe tap it at the base here. Gonna grab a bit of yellow, like that. Gonna grab some green. You can always change up your greens too. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a darker green. Gonna tap a little bit of that. And see, this isn't even a real like petal, or not petal, leaf shape. Just kind of make it very loose and messy almost. Like that. Okay, so you can kind of see we have this like diagonal pattern going on. So I kind of like how it's going that way. So on these sides, I think I might make them a little bit lighter. So the focus is this diagonal shape. And so we're just gonna do some maybe lighter buds or leaves here. So let's grab a little bit of yellow. And I'm gonna do like, hold on, wash that off a bit better. I'm gonna do really, really light yellow buds over here. Grab a bit of light green. And I'm gonna water it down, just taking some of that pigment off my brush, and I'm just gonna do like super, super light. That's even too light. Greenery coming down. Just really kind of fading it out this way. You can add a little bit more green to some of the bases of those, but I want it to be kind of faded. Okay, let's do the same kind of thing up there. I'm gonna grab a bit of yellow, water it down. Greenery, not too much. That, water that down. Like, it looks like you can barely see it, but it will show up and it will just look a lot more faded and kind of really nice. And then what you can even do too, if you like, let's get a bit more green, just tap. Okay, and then what you can do just to add a little bit something extra, I'm gonna grab my size 6 round brush. I'm gonna grab a bit of green, and I'm gonna do just some smaller kind of foliage. So I'm gonna do really thin lines, and then I'm just gonna do 2 little boops with the tip of my brush. You're just gonna dab, dab. And they look like they're tiny little leaves. Dab, 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 like that. Okay, and you can do that wherever you think it may look nice. Might water it down a bit. Do some really light ones. Like that. But there you go. There is your really loose floral piece. For the center of these open ones, you can always do some little dots in the middle. Like that for the centers. But that's it. Very loose floral piece, just breaking it down by using these curved shapes. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram and Facebook for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.